Well, briefly, my grandparents came to this country from Italy. My grandfather made wine, made his own wine, and I remember as a young guy, he had it was all hand, hand press and hand bottling. Everybody was making his own wine. And being Italian, we always grew up with wine at the dinner table. No one overindulged, but it was part of the meals, very European. So I've always been very interested in wine, and I've studied it a fair bit over the years. And at some point, I decided I wanted to do my own thing. So I jumped off the deep end.
And so, were you always eyeing North Carolina? Were there talks like maybe doing
Not
New
at all.
York?
That was sort of a second thought, actually. At the time, most folks counseled me that if you're going to do this, you need to be on the West Coast. Well, my whole family, everybody's on the East Coast, so that wasn't going to work for me. And I originally looked in the Finger Lakes region, upstate New York. Beautiful. But it gets very cold. You can't grow the types of things I wanted to grow. So then I started considering the mid-Atlantic states, Virginia, North Carolina, and I went to a conference probably 10 years ago now, put on by Virginia Tech, enology program, and they were very enthusiastic about this new wine region, sort of the western part of North Carolina, because of the altitude and, warm days, cool nights, and those learned folks thought that this would be a great place to expand the wine industry. So I started looking around here. And happened on this place, and it's all history.
All right. How about you, Stephen? How did you get your start in the wine industry?
Well, trying to keep a possibly long story very short. I kind of fell into it. I don't come from a family in the industry or anything like that. I actually got a degree. I'm originally born and raised in Mississippi. I got a degree from Mississippi State University in marine engineering. Did that for a couple of years, went back into Starkville, where Mississippi State is, and fell into a job at harvest time in a wine and grape research facility they had there in the agricultural school. A friend of mine got me a job there just for harvest. Turned into a lot more than harvest time. I got bit by the bug, as they say, and just stayed with it, learned what I could there for about 2.5 years working in the cellar. And then in 1982, moved to Virginia to take a so-called real job in the commercial ends of winemaking and such. And really did not, back at that time, desire to go out to the West Coast to be the little fish in the big pond, so to speak. There was a lot of exciting things happening in Virginia and on the East Coast and such, so kind of wanted to be a part of that, looked like. And kind of like Bill said, my family's out here in the eastern part of the country as well, so I didn't necessarily want to leave all that. And so, as I say, went to Virginia and started working there, and just been in the industry ever since here in the Mid-Atlantic. Came to North Carolina in 2000 to work in this state. And except for a short stint in Pennsylvania, have been here ever since, working with these grapes.
Can you both tell us a little bit about the grape and why you selected it, and if there's anything you like with making the wine, Nero?
Well, the grape is distinctly Italian. I mean, it's principally from the Apulia region, the Heel region. It's also in Basilicata and Campania, or Naples and stuff, but it's a very southern Italian grape. And when I started looking at it and thinking about it, I talked to some folks on the West Coast where the vines come from. All the vines come from the West Coast. And I said, well, what do you think? How's it going to do in North Carolina? They're like, who knows? No one's ever planted in that mid-Atlantic region. So it was a little bit of a leap of faith. Of all the things we planted, that was sort of the unknown experiment. Turns out it likes it here. In Italy, it's very drought resistant. It likes clay soil, which works well for us. And it's not a difficult grape to grow here, but it's very distinctive. And we'll talk about the flavor profiles later and all. So I didn't really know, but it turned out to be a happy ending.
Stephen, your thoughts on the grape?
Well, one thing I like about working in the Mid-Atlantic in this region over these years is that there's a lot of exploration and learning to be done about what are to us new grape varieties, very old European varieties and things like that. Some of these Italian varieties like this one fall into that category. Not a lot of experience with working with them or anything like that, so there's these wonderful challenges as a winemaker to be able to kind of work and try to develop those wines. In the particular case of this grape, I find that sort of my approach to it, or what I notice from it, it's a little bit like Sangiovese to me, which I've also said to people. We take an approach kind of like trying to make Pinot Noir. It's relatively light pigmented compared to, say, a Merlot or a Cabernet Sauvignon, especially a Petit Verdot or something like that. So we work with that. It seems to have, so we treat it very gently. You cannot beat these grapes up without bruising the flavors and aromatics and things like that. So we kind of take a Pinot Noir approach to the winemaking. I find the wines are very spicy in aroma, which I find very intriguing. The flavors take a while to develop. So far, it seems. These are still young vines, and there's a lot to be learned from them yet, but I just find it to be one of the more interesting and potentially exciting wines to be made out there. I think, as I say, especially working with some of these Italian varieties, there's a lot to be learned there. There's a lot yet to finding these good varieties that really work in this region, as opposed to the more established, say, Chardonnays, Merlots, Cab Francs, things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with those. They make great wines, and they grow well here. But there's just so many more varieties to explore, and this is one of the prime ones for that, I think.
Okay, and it's I was reading online that I know, like, you guys use it's 100%.
Yes.
But I read it could be a good blending grape as well.
Traditionally, it was in Italy. Up until recently, like many of the vineyards in southern Italy, certainly Sicily, they were for bulk production and blending. And this was traditionally, years back, used as a blending agent in Italy. There's the signature wine is Salice Salentino, which is 100% Negro Amaro over there. And it's quite nice and not overpriced. And so I became familiar with this and said, wow, this is pretty neat stuff. So we're doing 100% Negro Amaro. We don't blend it with anything else.
Okay, would there ever be thoughts of blending, like with a Montepulciano that you do or something?
There's always thoughts. I mean, every year, as you know, we do these blending trials, and most of our wines tend to be, well, they're all state grown, but most of them tend to be 100%. Sangiovese, the Montepulciano, Negro Amaro. We do one called L'Ottimo, which is sort of a super Tuscan-like blend, mostly Sangio, some Cab, some Merlot, and that varies from year to year. You do your tasting trials and see what works. Sure, anything's possible in the future. It's a nice grape, and it's making good wine. We're actually getting ready to plant more of it.
Okay.